Welcome back to Tech for Thought, where we break down the latest news in AI, finance, and emerging tech. On our previous episode, we delved into the rise of the low code, no code platforms, and then specifically talking about Amazon's Bedrocks, their latest advancements, and broader movement in AI development. So, in today's episode, we're shifting focus a little bit to the financial sector, uh, particularly exploring how AI is revolutionizing everything from fraud detection to personalized banking experiences. So, we'll also discuss some developments in RBC's establishment of the new AI team as well, and just broader implications of AI integration into finance. Speaking of which, RBC, they have established a formalized AI team for capital markets. They launched a new artificial intelligence digital innovation team within its capital markets division. The team it's under Grudert, I think is the Bobby Grubert. So he was the head of AI previously, or now he is the head of AI. He was previously doing work on their e-trading platform. It's called Aiden. It's like their Think or Swim, I guess. I'm assuming like their version of that. But a couple questions that arose from just hearing about these companies doing these great things. How might AI-driven strategies reshape capital markets, and what's your guys' take on it, and just AI integration in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're entering a new era, essentially where AI just doesn't support just traders. It can become a strategic partner as well. I think capital markets are fast moving, and AI thrives in that kind of environment. Um, it can analyze market movements in real time, react to news, adjust trading algorithms, and even spot arbitrage opportunities quicker than any human, really. And also like pattern recognition, right? So AI is really good at that. So this isn't just automation; it's strategic augmentation. And with RBC projecting up to $1 billion in value from their AI team, which is insane,
Hmm.
I think they clearly believe that algorithmic intelligence is going to drive growth. And it's definitely a big shift from human-led intuition and data-led precision. So definitely a good thing.
Yeah, I think as we kind of see a lot of banks adopt this, I know we've kind of touched on this in past episodes, but I think you'll see AI as kind of a driving force, as you mentioned. I think like there's so many facets that it's going to be used in. Like even today, this isn't related to the bank, but it's kind of an example of these different things that you kind of used to seeing people do. Uh, Today I was at the doctor and they used an AI agent for a scribe. And when I came in, he asked for the my consent to use it and was like, normally we have a person, but now we're moving to AI scribe. So there's similar stuff like that I know being used in the finance industry. And I think as the whenever you're starting a whole team, right? They're getting a whole digital innovation team, leveraging AI and stuff like that. I think it's just them showing how serious they are about growth, not just, they've got shareholders to answer to. And we see a lot of companies right now, they're trying to latch onto AI in any way they can. And a lot of them need kind of a direction, So these companies, they know they want to implement AI, but they don't know how to implement it. They don't know where to implement it. They just know it's important, right? And so a lot of them are starting these types of teams. They're bringing in, external help to kind of set a foundation. So they're starting a team. They're going to work on this, but they're showing their shareholders as well here. Like we're serious about staying at the forefront. And so whenever they're listing out a number that they're expecting to generate, I think it's just, it's something that it's hard to put a number on. So I always get a little bit weirded out whenever they start listing out their expected earnings from things like this. But I do think regardless of what their number is, I do think it'll bring in more money and it'll definitely drive growth. So I want to see more of how they're leveraging it before I kind of make a judgment on it.
What earlier you mentioned AI agents. What exactly is an AI agent, and what does it do, and how does it complete these tasks?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a there's really two types of agents right now. And the second one is what everybody's trying to get to. So an AI agent essentially is someone or basically a bot that has LLM attached to it and a bunch of workflows, et cetera, that allows so it takes in an input either from a user or some automated trigger, and then it basically does something based on that information. So right now, what everybody's going to is kind of AI agents with human on the loop. So for an AI agent, right? So they don't necessarily want or they don't necessarily trust an AI agent to do everything correctly.
Hmm.
So right now they're focusing on, yeah, sure, the AI agent can summarize everything, and then kind of keep a workflow set up where they can send an approval to a human. The human can review what the AI wants to do, and the human can either change whatever the AI is going to do or approve it, and then the AI just does it in the back end. But what they're trying to get to is to a point where AI agents can just go off and do what they want. We trust them 100%. I don't necessarily know when that's really going to happen, especially in something as critical as finance and dealing with people's money. I don't know about you guys, but personally, with all of these hallucinations and things like that, I don't
Hmm.
feel 100% with AI just taking the reins and doing whatever it wants. So I definitely think that we should keep AI agents in the first part with human in the loop for now. I think human intuition is also a something that needs to be kept within that loop. So yeah, so there's two types of AI agents. One AI agent where it analyzes everything, all the information that's coming in, and then creates kind of like a workflow, and then sends it to a human to review, so the human can either approve or change it or decline it. Then we have the other one where it's just fully automated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So then in RBC's case, what challenges do you think could arise from increased AI integration, like these AI agents in trading? Like what could you see going wrong, but also like what could you see going right? Like what tasks could you automate to help trade, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think with every innovation comes risk, right? AI, there's risk, hallucinations, et cetera, et cetera. So I think one major concern is the potential for AI to cause unintended ripple effects like flash crashes. So if multiple AI models interpret market signals in the same way, they might all make similar trades simultaneously, creating a sudden like market volatility. And obviously, volatility is not necessarily good for markets. So there's
Mm,
also the black box, right, problem where we don't always understand how AI made a decision. So
mhm,
that lack of transparency makes regulation harder. And of course, there's always the risk of model bias or being trained on bad data. So while the
mhm,
upside is huge, the safety rails need to be solid. So like I said, human on the loop, et cetera, et cetera. So you can't just have AI models running amok and trying to do all these trades by themselves. You have to have humans reviewing these trades so AI can handle all of the data analysis, et cetera, of the markets, pull in all this information, but you still need that human reviewing these trades so you don't get this massive volatility in the market.
mhm. Earlier you mentioned model bias. What does that mean?
Yeah, so basically, model bias is the bias that an AI agent has based on the information that it was trained on. So if it was
Mhm,
trained by somebody who, I don't know, believes that I don't know, insurance stocks are the way to go. They're amazing, blah blah blah. An AI model might interpret and do analysis on, let's say, the insurance market,
Hmm.
and based on the data that it got from that person who loves, I don't know, the insurance market, it might try to make too many trades in the insurance market where it might not be the best decision to do so. So there's definitely bias based on who trained the model, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, bad data. Um, so that's pretty much what model bias is, right?
Gotcha. Okay, so it only knows what it's taught,
Right.
essentially, from the data. So I heard some news about JP Morgan. They're leveraging Gen AI now for deal making insights. JP Morgan is deploying generative AI tools to help assist investment bankers with some of their strategic decision making that it comes with, like investment banking as well as deal preparation and just general insight gathering. But it's pretty cool how it's being used to analyze real massive sets of data for M&A deals or generate executive summaries and prepare pitch materials for decks that they may have. But some questions arose. How could AI's predictive capabilities reshape the landscape of high stakes finance? What do you see it doing good at?
Yeah, I mean, I think M&A and strategic finance have always had or have always been about who can process more data and extract better insights faster. So I think generative AI gives firms like JP Morgan essentially superpowers in that area. Imagine being able to scan decades of deals, earnings calls, and financial statements in
Oh
minutes,
wow,
and
yeah.
then get a summary of where the market is headed. So AI can flag companies that might be ripe for acquisition based on, subtle financial signals. That totally shifts the balance. It's not just about relationships and experience anymore. It's about who has the best AI toolkit. And I think that with AI being able to analyze all this data, all these massive amounts of data fast, right? It can create summaries for then humans, right? Humans in the loop can like analyze this data, analyze the summaries where they're not spending hours and hours on this. All of that, or days on this, all of that can be squished down into a matter of hours where they can make their deals faster, and basically invest faster based on all of this analysis, which is really cool.
Yeah, I wanna kind of touch on something that you just said, and the experience isn't going to matter as much. It's actually really something interesting to think about because at first you're kind of like, well, it's always going to matter. But if you break it down to why experience matters, I mean, there's a lot of things that AI won't be able to adjust for. But a lot of times when we think about experience, it's how it affects like your intuition, your decision making, because of what you've experienced in your lifetime. But at the end of the day, if you really break that down, I mean, your average experience at a point where you're making that decision maybe later in life or whatever. Maybe you've been in the industry probably like 20 years, which on our short lifespan and, kind of work lifespan is, 20, 30 years. That's a lot. But I think if you really think about that, I mean, AI can literally summarize, analyze, understand, predict everything based on 200 years worth of data. And that's actually really an interesting thought because that's not something you really hear about or really think about much. And I wonder how that will actually be affecting industries because yeah, I think it is going to be now more about how can you leverage AI's ability to review and predict, and then you start wondering, okay, well, we have all these AI driven leaders and sectors and things like that, and how are they going to start implementing things, models and platforms to provide for these companies. And then we've already seen with technology, especially just in general, there be kind of that gap in experience versus you know knowledge around technology and stuff like that. That gap is already closed some, but I think this AI whatever you want to call it, this boom in it and the direction it's taking us. That's a really interesting topic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think every time, I mean, I wouldn't say technology necessarily makes us dumber, but it makes us focus on other things that become more important when AI takes over the things that necessarily aren't as important anymore. Um, like when it came to coding, when somebody, I forget his name, developed the coding language assembly. Assembly was the closest, essentially, computer language, or closest development language that was as close to computer language as possible. But now, when somebody created C, then people didn't need to know assembly anymore or understand the things like that. So when it comes to AI and analyzing data, people don't necessarily need to focus more on analyzing vast amounts of data anymore. AI can kind of squish all that data into more of like a summarized version, more of a condensed, more important data scenario, where now humans can analyze that portion, where they're not having to analyze such vast amounts of data anymore, which is cool. Basically, AI takes over the kind of time-intensive tasks and lets humans do more of the more important things, like actually making decisions on that summarized data.
Is that
So
what you mean by
my
humans in the, sorry to cut you off. I was just
yeah.
interested. And earlier you said humans in the loop.
Yeah.
So is that what that process is, or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, so you can have an AI agent that goes and takes in data from various sources, analyzes market trends, et cetera, but then you still want humans to kind of take that summarized data, review it, to then make decisions on mergers and acquisitions, or restructuring of a firm or company, or making these trades. You don't want AI to just run amok and do whatever it wants. You still want the human in the loop to be able to answer all of that or review all that data, and then make informed decisions based on what the AI has outputted.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What were you saying,
I
Chris?
think I think the kind of other thought process you can, thought experiment, I guess you could say, is, when we're training the models, especially long term like this, and we were just talking about experience gap kind of closing, but when we're training models, I feel like it can't just be pure data related to the topic, if this makes sense. It would have to be more kind of things going on in the world, I feel like almost, because especially if you're looking at finance, right? If you were to just feed the AI, this the pure numbers of what's happened in the past. I mean, it'll be able to regurgitate those numbers, but then I start wondering, well, is it with just that data, you're not going to understand why did these dips happen? Why did these crashes happen? What impacted this? Why blah 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 blah? Because those need to be taken into account whenever you're trying to make predictions based on your analysis, right? So I feel like that's where the experience does become more important, because that's kind of the problem with AI, or with technology, I think in general, is it doesn't have that kind of that intrinsic value that drives humans to look further into topics. It just is trained on data. It regurgitates that data. It provides kind of an analysis or a direction based on all the numbers, but that's only a part of the picture. We could look at World War II and see how that impacted the financial industry in the United States. The AI might be able to take that into account, but it's not able to take into account all the different things that happened during World War II here in the United States that led to all the different impacts, because it's not just one thing. So whenever you look at the data, though, it's like, oh, well, these markets fell and this did that and blah, blah, blah. And this is the impact. But at the end of the day, it's not able to give that description of what all was happening. Whereas a person that lived through that and understood, they would be able to say, this is what the world was like at the time. I lived it, I experienced it. So I think that's where you'll see kind of experience and where people are always going to be more important to have in that loop. There will always need to be the human being aspect of it because we
Mhm.
have that larger field and understanding of what's going on.
So what do you guys think are the implications of automating some of these traditionally human intensive strategy tasks? How do you see this working out?
I mean, I touched upon it a bit earlier, but honestly, it's basically a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, it frees up bankers to focus on higher level strategy, things like negotiations, creative structuring, and relationship building. But on the other hand, we risk losing that deep human judgment that comes from experience. There's also a cultural shift happening where young professionals coming into into finance will need to be data native and comfortable with AI as part of the workflow. And we can't ignore accountability, right? So if an AI suggests a bad deal and the team acts on it, who's responsible? Is it the AI? Is it the person who created the AI? Is it the person who decided to tell their team to take anything the AI suggests? So I don't think those questions have fully been answered yet. And I think that from a governance standpoint, security standpoint, and accountability standpoint, I think these firms need to really look at these aspects instead of just focusing on, yeah, sure, AI is important, and we need to every company needs to kind of jump on the bandwagon per se. Um, but I think that you definitely need to focus on those other things as well, like accountability.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are really good
agreed.
points.
Mhm. Well, let's move on to the next one. So, Mastercard unveils a new consumer-aware AI for fraud and engagement. It's called Decision Intelligence Pro. It combines behavioral signals with generative AI to improve fraud prevention and deepen customer engagement. This tool uses real-time data and adaptive learning to detect anomalies in transactions. Also personalizes banking interactions, improving customer loyalty and satisfaction. And Mastercard reports a 20% reduction in false fraud declines during pilot testing. So it sounds like it's doing a pretty good job. This is probably going to be a new big player in the AML BSA space, probably if it's detecting fraud. Could definitely see it helping out there. But how do you guys think integrating behavioral analysis enhances AI fraud detection capabilities? What can you see it helping with?
Think a lot of times whenever you think about behavioral analysis, it's pattern recognition anyways. That is probably 85% of it is pattern recognition. I mean, any type of, you see someone that's a repeat offender of something, it's pretty simple behavioral
Mm-hmm.
analysis, right? Like, okay, there's
Mm-hmm.
a pattern here. You're doing this over and over. You say you're gonna be better. You don't. Over and
Yeah,
over. So I think and whenever you look at the finance industry, there's a reason why there's the $10,000 security thing that they have going on there. And it's because they obviously noticed trends and they found that that's the point that needed to be cut off for, right? And so I think behavioral analysis AI can be very very helpful there because it can analyze a larger amount of data to basically identified various patterns, probably even patterns that people would miss, because it's
yeah,
way harder for us to sit here and look at 100,000 instances and notice all the different patterns because we'll also develop our own bias as we analyze. It will get more tunneled into the ones we're seeing. We won't be able to see other patterns. So I think not only in learning patterns, but also actively identifying those learned patterns. Because if it's identified 10 different patterns, you know, it will be able to look at an action and identify it and see if it groups under any of those 10, right? Versus a person who may be familiar with one or two more often, so they've got that bias to lean towards that and look for that. And then, when it comes across and they don't see those things that they've kind of developed their bias or their knowledge towards, then they might not mark it, right? And so I think with AI, it's not got that bias as much, especially if you've trained it extensively enough. So I think it will be more consistent in identifying flags or follow-ups or anything like that. And then it can just be handed to a human to further dive into.
Yeah, that's part of the process. I guess these fraud prevention softwares use a lot of them are doing a lot of due diligence for these banks with that they use their software that helps develop profiles and maybe a paper trail that FinCEN could then enforce if it's a potential money laundering situation, especially even for tracking cash spikes. ACH, they're called ACH spikes or just cash spikes in general. Everything over in excess of 10,000 needs to be documented on a currency transaction form. So if you're trying to launder money, I guess, and you're just putting it all into the bank, this software could more than likely pick up those cash spikes. If I don't know what their specific rules are, but that's definitely something it can help with, just generating that paper trail. Or if there's a excess of like there's a laundromat and it does 5,000 one month, and then the next month it does like 100,000. It's like where did you get that money from?
You just had a lot of business. It was
Yeah,
Coachella that day.
it's
People
Coachella.
needed. I went and unplugged everybody's washers and dryers and filled them with random.
That probably would look so weird if you're at Coachella. You just see a laundromat.
It's like, I mean, those people get sweaty. It's in the hot California desert, I think. So
New business idea, pop-up laundromats. You just go to
just go to each festival.
You
you just go
probably
to festivals with like a truck of washer machines and dryers.
that'd be
That'd be
crazy.
funny. That'd be
Did
funny.
someone
That'd
throw up
be
on your shirt and you don't know them?
yeah,
Make
or
them
like,
pay the
dude,
$5. Make them pay $15 to wash your clothes.
Come to Festival Washer and Dryer.
and then you'll do like those you guys see those Instagram like those pop-up shops
Yeah.
that like for like the winter or something, or like they'll do like a pop-up shop for
Yeah.
Yep.
this laundromat. Yeah, good stuff. But so I did have another question about this specifically. Can generative AI redefine trust and transparency between financial institutions and customers? Because earlier, like you mentioned, Sahib, there's a big issue with maybe like trust in general with AI. Like it's this new novel thing that not a lot
Mhm.
of people know about yet.
Yep.
So what do you see it doing between like redefining the trust and transparency
Yeah, I
between
mean,
financial?
I think it absolutely can redefine trust in transparency. But like I said, only if used with care. Generative AI can do things like explain why a fraud alert was triggered, or give you a natural language summary of your monthly spending. That kind of clarity builds trust, right? But if it's a chatbot that spits out canned responses or makes decisions behind the scenes with no explanation, that breaks trust. So the key is transparency. So you want to let people know how and why decisions are being made, and then give them control over their data. So if let's say your behavioral AI flags something as fraud, you want to be able to send to the customer, hey, we flagged this as fraud because of this, and this. Is this correct? Should this be something that we always look for, et cetera, et cetera? And then what they want to do, obviously they want to tell the customer like, hey, based on your response, we'll be training our model. Do you accept this? That's another thing for transparency. But they can basically take the customer's answers and then retrain the model, et cetera, et cetera. So it keeps looking for those errors, or fixes their kind of flagging where it doesn't flag those transactions if the transaction was correct. So I think transparency is key. You need to tell the customer exactly what's happening, how decisions were made, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I think with as far as trusting AI goes, it's it's going to take time. It's going to take time for the technology to be better, gaps to be worked on, and it's also going to take time for the general population to get used to AI. I mean, people came in with AI. People came in already cautious. I mean, there's just this stigma around AI. Like people have watched all these movies over time, and when they think artificial intelligence, they think, oh, a robot that's gonna know everything about
Terminator,
me and then try to hunt me down or something, you know?
Skynet.
So there's already like a weird stigma from media and stuff like that for people, and that's a genuine thing. But I think, when we've seen this start getting implemented everywhere, people feel like they're under more pressure, especially people that have been in industries for longer. They all of a sudden feel like, oh no, like, am I becoming less valuable? Am I becoming um, more obsolete? Where do I need to go? What do I need to study? What do I need to learn to stay on top of this? And then it creates other kind of stigmas around, people are worried about job security, job placement, um, from every level too. We talked about those multimodal models, um,
Oh
that
yeah,
can
that's right.
interfere with people that work with their hands, that jobs that you wouldn't typically think AI would go and handle, or you have, coffee shop robots and stuff like that. So I think, what we've seen with all of this is there's going to be a place for AI, and it's we're, as a society, I think we're trying to find where it belongs and kind of just where it fits in society, right? Because
Hmm.
some companies and some people are taking it too far, and then some of them maybe aren't taking it far enough, and there's just trying to find this balance. And it's just like any technology that's ever been used, people get very hyped about it, and then there's people that don't want it, and then, so you've always got your detractors and your people that are going to try to put it into everything. And then over time it kind of finds its middle ground. And we saw this with, I say we weren't exactly alive for it, but, or we were very young, but the .net bubble, right? Like
Uh-huh.
all of that whole thing can, I think, kind of be compared to the AI stuff right now. Maybe not obviously on the same scale, but just in the terms of kind of finding its way and settling its way into society. I mean, now we have search engines, and it's kind of like your everyday thing now. But back then, they were implementing different versions of this all over the place. There were no common protocols or anything like that. It was just kind of a free for all. And some people, like I said, it's an adjustment thing. And now we've settled in. I think AI will do the same thing. People don't trust AI right now. People didn't trust smartphones. People didn't trust. It goes with any technology. And I think as the youth that's been using it more and grows up with it comes, into the workplace. So over the next, it may take 10, 15 years for this, but I do think, us being in the tech world, and, the world now has accepted technology more openly than in the past. I think it'll find its place a little bit quicker.
I don't know about you, but Robo Barista sounds nice. Maybe it'll write my name correctly on the cup.
That does sound very nice, indeed.
I actually, we were at there's a place in my hometown that uses a robo barista. And I'll say, as a tech guy, I don't like it that much. It's cool for like a one off or whatever. But after that, you're like, I want a person barista. It's just more comforting, than a robot
Yeah,
behind a glass thing.
yeah,
Yep,
So it's
yep.
cool, and it's cool to watch, and it's impressive, but it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, this feels like it belongs at like one of those tech conventions or something, like a convention, where they've just got cool stuff everywhere, doing like random stuff. So I feel like it would be that those things are more like convention type situation to me.
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, everything. There's grace in having a human, like a barista, instead of like a robot that's just rigid. and just stiff and to the exact measurement of whatever serving you're getting. And there's one here too,
Or
and it's pretty
cold.
cool. It's called
It's just more
Yummy
cold.
Future. Yeah, it's like it's less like connecting, it's just it
Because
makes
it'll
you.
do all the like shaking and it'll do little dances
Yeah,
and stuff. And so it's like, oh, that's really cool, but it's kind of like
it's measured.
gimmicky in a
Yeah,
way,
it's like it's
And
like
so you're
not.
like, I like it and it's cool, but I like also going into a small coffee shop and having a
Yeah,
conversation with someone as they're getting my drink ready, you know what I mean? And then just kind
yeah.
of watching
Mhm.
people behind the counter walking around and doing their job. And it's just kind of, I think, again, that's where we identify there's people that need to be doing things. Like we can't just all have AI step in and do everything, and I don't think we'll end
Mhm.
up doing that. So I actually
Yeah,
saw recently, I don't remember what company it was, but there's been two companies that I've seen the last 2 weeks that are already dialing back their
Klarna.
AI. Huh?
Klarna's one.
Klarna.
Klarna's one of them.
Yeah. I know that some of them are dialing back kind of how much they've done with AI. And there was one that I was reading about the other day where they were just straight up like, yeah, we replaced too many people. We thought we would be able to take this and replace workers, but now we realized like that we messed up. So
Yeah.
they're
So
Dang.
yes,
rehiring the people that they laid off and stuff like that. And so
yeah. That
Wow.
company you're talking about is Klarna.
The payment.
And yeah, the payment
Yeah,
platform.
payment
I
platform.
mean, we don't necessarily need to get into the ethics of it all, but let's just say Klarna is not a good company in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they prey on low income people,
Oh man.
and they essentially expect that maybe over 55% of people won't be able to pay their non-interest portion, um, or their pay their thing off before interest hits it. So that, and then their interest rate's like 40%, which is insane. So they prey on
Damn.
these low income people. They entice them with like no interest, blah blah blah, for this amount of time, and then they obviously jack up the interest once that time passes, and they know that's gonna happen, but they're like, it's fine, we'll make money that way.
Wow.
But I do want to say that last year they reported $46 million in losses. This year they reported almost double that, so I'm kind of happy about that.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, so
how do you
maybe
even how do you even get lose that much money when you've been successfully taking advantage of people that have
Bad
no out
business
for them?
model.
I mean maybe like I said, maybe they went to AI too quickly, and like he said, like the CEO said, we got too many AI agents. People want to talk to humans, so we're hiring humans again. I don't know, but I'm happy. I don't really care.
And you're just
Yeah.
like, forget them, screw them, they deserve it.
Exactly,
What's their
They
exactly.
stock
do.
price
I
at?
mean, there's unfortunately way too many companies that do that kind of stuff, and
Are they
I don't
publicly
even know
traded?
how it's legal, honestly.
I mean, Affirm, Zip or something. There's a bunch. There's a bunch. Afterpay.
Yeah, yeah, there is a
Afterpay,
bunch.
yeah.
Like seriously, I mean, in a lot of things where even um, companies that what is it? Is it Western Union where you have to? It's like the only company you can use to send money internationally to like these small countries and stuff.
Mm,
Um,
I think
they
so.
take like a massive portion of every single time that there's a transfer from like say someone's here and they've got to send money back to you know Colombia or something, right? Like they take
Yep.
10, 20, some crazy percent like that out of that payment. So if they're like, oh, I need to send money to XYZ down in Colombia, I'm going to send them $500, but 50 of that is going to come out, which 50 may not seem like that much out of 500. But when you think about the impact of that down there, I mean, that you do the conversion of US dollar to whatever their currency is. And I mean, that's a hefty amount. And then you think about how Western Union is going to do all of its, how it'll leverage, a 10% trade here. I mean, you think about how many people they use that every day. I mean, that's just free money that they're farming off of people that have no other option, which is why cryptocurrency is starting to take off, because it doesn't cost money for you to transfer cross seas. So
True. Though, is it easier for them, for people overseas to convert that crypto? I don't know.
uh, well, and then that's kind of where my question is on that is like the gas fees. Like if they're gonna pull it out, isn't there gas fees? You know,
Mm, yeah.
so
Isn't
but
that
that's
what
everyone's argument, anyways.
Sam Bankman Friedman, what SBF, Sam Bankman Fried, isn't that what he did with his trading platform? He was able to trade the crypto for higher or something. Do you guys know?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't
Um,
know what it is. I know he's the one that was like heavy in the fraud stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
defrauded a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't
I don't
remember what.
remember the specifics.
Yeah, there was
The
a
Bernie
lot
Madoff
around
of
it. Is why it
crypto.
was like
For real.
oversaturated. You couldn't track what was going on with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, moving on. Deepfake. This one's kind of cool. Deepfake equity analyst. So the future of financial communication. UBS is exploring the use of AI generated avatars to represent its equity analysts now, just in short videos, helping signaling a shift in client facing functions, rather. So these are actual digital clones that mimic the analyst appearances and gestures based on scripted notes that it's fed. And clients have responded positively for the most part, despite just a few misses. So what do you guys think are the ethical considerations of using AI avatars in finance, and how could you see this going wrong?
I mean, it's a little Black Mirror, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. It's kind of funny when you think about it because usually this is like, I don't know about you, but if you're having somebody that's managing your money, I did like to talk to a real person.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know, that's just me.
This
we're
feels
talking about
disingenuous.
we're talking about digital replicas here, avatars that look and sound like real equity analysts, but delivering insights on the screen. I mean, on the surface, sure, it's efficient, but ethically, there are a few red flags, right? First, people need to know they're talking to an avatar. That transparency, like I said earlier, is key. Second, the analyst needs whose face and voice are being used needs to give informed consent. They can't just have like picture day one day and then decide to create an avatar out of all their employees. And then finally, there essentially needs to be a risk manipulation. Uh, there's definitely a sorry, there's a risk of manipulation. An avatar could be used to deliver messages with a level of persuasion that a plain email wouldn't carry. That's where it can cross the line from helpful to what's the word, deceptive, right?
Mhm.
So definitely needs to be lots of transparency, informed consent, et cetera, et cetera. Definitely lots of ethical considerations there.
What do you think, Chris?
Personally, I I kind of feel like it's a slap in the face, really. I'm not big on people just sending this video that is supposed to be targeted for you, but you just know, like, I'm not stupid, I can tell that this was sent to 100 people, and it's not targeted to me. Um, it's it's one of those things where it's like, why bother,
Yeah.
Um, it's just like, if you're gonna send me a message, just send me the message, If
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
want to try to up your personalization with me, actually talk to me. Don't just send me a recording with your avatar to pretend like we're having a face-to-face conversation. Like
Mhm.
that feels so disingenuous and almost like kind of like a cop out of like, oh yeah, see, we're person to person with our clients, and it's
Mhm.
no, you're not. You're sending it basically, you're just sending an email with a fake video,
Yeah.
which
Kind of makes you feel like a
feels
number,
like,
right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Just
is no
yeah.
effort, and then you're trying to cover it up as, oh yeah, we're just making it
Uh-huh.
more personable. No, just send me the email. I don't want this mass video
Uh-huh.
thing that's like, just send me the email. I'll read it. I don't want to look at an AI face that's supposed to be someone else, but you didn't even take the time to just at least record the video.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
it's
Right.
literally
understand
telling you
why.
it's
Yeah,
literally
I
telling you the same
understand
thing that
why.
I could have just read.
Exactly. So I'm just, it feels A, like a waste of money and time and technology, first off. Um, and I don't see any business value in it. I would, if you're gonna send me something that's generic, you talking face to face with me, take a video of yourself, you know. Don't just
Yep.
have AI. You know what? It kind of makes me think though, it's kind of funny. I don't know if you ever watched Harry Potter where the letters can like speak to you or whatever based on what's in them. That's what it kind of gives
Um,
me the vibe of like, oh yeah, this letter gets delivered to you, and now it's talking to you in this person's voice, you know?
yeah.
But it's
Harry
somebody's
Potter.
face.
What was
So
that the little gremlin thing? Dobby?
Oh, Dobby.
Dobby,
Yeah,
Dobby's the
Dobby.
goat. Dobby's a legend.
Dobby.
Master gave
Man,
Dobby a sock.
that was pretty good.
That was good.
I practice a
Yeah.
lot, man. I practice a lot.
I don't even want to know why.
I mean, I grew up on Harry Potter, right? It's like when did the
Yeah,
first
Harry
movie came out?
Potter.
Like 1996?
Something.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
my mom
it's been
watched Harry
out.
Potter like they do the fall marathon things every year, and I swear to God, she watched every single episode on there like all day, every day. She doesn't
Jesus.
even seem like the most Harry Potter person. Like if you talk to her, you would think she hated Harry Potter. But no, I know Harry Potter like the back of my hand because
It's
we
just
only had
on
the
all the
one
time.
TV, so you're just watching whatever's on that TV. And I'm four, I don't, or 8 or whatever. I don't have the permissions to change the channel. The reason I could list you off a ton of HGTV shows.
Hey, HGTV is great. I like
HGTV
HGTV.
is very. I like all their.
Not when you're 8, it's not. When you're 8, you're like, I don't care how someone's looking at 3 different houses that they want to buy.
How do they
House
even get
Hunters
all that?
International.
Those those
Yeah.
those are so cool though. But
Yeah, I do like that. Yeah.
yeah.
But
But how do
yeah,
you
I'm not a
guys?
big fan of it personally. I think
Uh,
it's kind of ridiculous.
how do you? Could you think this trend could lead to a reduced human interaction in client services? Because people are saying that they like it. So what do you guys say to those people?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's both good and bad. For basic updates or I don't know, quarterly summaries, an AI avatar could be a time saver. But in finance, trust is built through relationships, right? So a video avatar can't replace empathy, intuition, or real-time dialogue. So while this tech can improve scale and efficiency, I see it as a complement, not a replacement, right? So for real human interaction. And I think that there needs to be definitely a distinction. They can't use AI avatars for everything.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, if their clients are fine with it, then the clients are fine with it. I just feel like it's one of those things where they're asking us like, "Did you like that?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. I guess it was fine." Like you're not gonna say like you hate it because at the end of the day, I guess it's the same thing. It's just as you reading it yourself, I guess. But I doubt they're sitting there and like, oh yeah, this is amazing. We want it all of it, all of it. Do more. I feel like it's more of like, hey, do you like it? Sure. Yeah, it's
Right.
good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, more like that. I see. So
Yeah.
do you think a lot of financial institutions in general might adopt this strategy of using deepfake equity analysts if they're getting some results with it? What do you guys think?
I mean, possibly. Sure. I mean, they're definitely going to get results, right? Their people aren't going to be focusing on um sending personalized like updates to everybody individually, right? They just have like a email blast with this video go out, and then people can view it, et cetera, et cetera. But then at the end of the day, like I said earlier, couldn't this just be a email summary update that I could have? Is it really
Yeah,
personable
yeah,
if you're using a AI avatar?
It's not,
It
yeah.
it might give like an air of personability, saying, "Oh, I can watch something or listen to something." How people do audiobooks instead of regular books, so they don't have to read, or they can do stuff while listening to it. But I don't think, yeah, I don't think that something like this could really take off, at least in this case, in this instance.
Yeah. I think I think you might see it used in some other instances, particular like entertainment industry. I'm sure you'll see this show up in places. Video games, you might see it show up in places. So I think, you'll see AI avatars that do learn from the tendencies of humans and stuff like that. But I just don't think in a business industry it's going to be, I don't see it driving income or growth, if anything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it might be one of those things like, to me, it's like using a different color of paper on your mail and claiming that people like it and that's drawing growth for us. And it's not like, oh yeah, we use blue paper instead of white paper. So that makes us unique and more personable. I just think it's one of those, it's gimmicky. It feels like they're trying to come across as, oh, look at how genuine we are and we're personable, but then it just doesn't come across like that.
True.
Yeah. Which out of today or just in general, which AI development in finance do you guys believe have the most significant long-term impact?
Personally, I think anything around the security and fraud detection is going to have the best long-term impact. I think that is a part of the banking industry where you see less people be interested. You'll see, like in general, in the banking industry. Um, and it's also an area that, is subject to corruption. It's also subject to a lot more gaps. Like we talked about earlier, people's different learning biases. There's just so many things that I'm sure are missed that banks lose money on, or financial companies lose money on. It's not just banks, obviously. I think we get kind of pigeonholed into banks, but there are a lot of different companies in the finance industry that do different things. And I think whenever you come down to fraud detection, whether it's a business committing fraud, accounting fraud, anything like that. I mean, fraud covers more than just your typical banking fraud. So I think that part of the industry is where we'll see AI be the most useful and beneficial, and where you'll see AI grow more.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely the fraud detection and security area is definitely where I see AI being used the most. And I think that's where we'll get the most utility out of it. Um, that way you don't have people, sure you'll still have people keeping in the loop, like I said, human in the loop, but you'll have AI being able to analyze thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions at a speed where humans couldn't necessarily be able to do it. And like you said, Mastercard saw a 20% reduction in false declines because of it. And I think that as AI gets better, we'll only see that increase, and AI will get better and better at handling these types of interactions, especially as it keeps learning. So I think that all the other ones were kind of like gimmicky or kind of nice to haves. Well, I think this AI for fraud detection is kind of a must. If I see AI being used anywhere, I think this is where a must would be.
Gotcha. And do you guys see any AI trends in finance or just in general, that are currently under the radar and maybe could shed more light onto it?
I don't think there's really anything under the radar per se. AI is still even though AI as a whole is still in its infancy, but like generative AI, et cetera, is I'm sorry, AI as a whole isn't in its infancy. AI has been around for a while, but generative AI is in its infancy, and I think that as time goes by, we'll see more and more use cases pop up where basically it's just up to your imagination what you can use it for. Um, and I think I'm looking forward to the new advances where AI can be used to augment our way of life, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't really see anything under the radar as of yet. I mean, we see things rapidly coming, rapidly being announced, things that I didn't even know were in development. So, I mean, there could be things under the radar. It's just people are keeping them under wraps until they can, fully unveil something. So,
Now, something I saw recently that I thought was interesting was I don't know if it's a group of people or like a startup company. I feel like nowadays you could be a YouTuber for all I know. Um, but no, it was a group of people that work in the AI kind of space, but they were working on this model that basically analyzes world events and kind of what caused certain economic spikes. Like it basically analyzes how companies react during certain economic events. So what did these companies, the example that they provided was what did they do before COVID? What did they do when COVID hit? And what have they done to adjust things since COVID? And they ran like the run that they provided was like companies that spiked prices tremendously during COVID. They had been like on everybody natural inflation. You have your ups and downs a little bit here and there, but there's the general slope that's steady until 2020 hit. 2019, well, it was 2020 was when the major stuff happened as far as economy goes, and everything just kind of just skyrocketed up, right? But whenever the chart comes back, it doesn't come back down like at all, hardly. So it continues on this thing, and so they did something that's like profit margins before and after, and they broke down what the company released as their cogs, like cost of goods sold, and everything, right? So their profit margins grew on all these companies because when COVID started dialing back and they had full access to their supply
supply
chains and
chains.
stuff, these companies never adjusted their costs for their goods. So they're selling something, well, just as an example, they'd be selling something at $1,000 before COVID, and then COVID, maybe the year before was 800, and every year it's coming up $200, right? And from 2019 to 2020, all of a sudden it went from going up $200 to going up 1,000, and then it never came back down to adjust. So their profit margin, maybe out of that 1,000, is costing them 500, right? So maybe they're on like a 50% profit margin as they go up. But as that number went up, whenever their profit margins got a little bit tighter, right? As it kind of inclined, well, whenever their profit margins decrease, or whenever their cost of goods sold decreased, their price that they were selling at didn't. So the chart just goes like this is this, boom. So it's
Wow.
like,
Wow.
and that's with a lot of them. So it's like, it's really interesting that they kind of used AI though, and they did this for like 60 years for
Oh, wow.
I think 20 different companies. And
It's a good sample size.
five of them were automotive. So they took a couple different from different industries
Uh-huh.
to analyze. And basically their thing was that you can plug and play with any company that releases their financials publicly. So basically publicly traded companies. And because they have all of their financials out there to be reviewed, so they could just train the model, and the model's already trained on the world events at the time. So because it's already trained on world events at the time, it can just plug in these financials and see how companies reacted, and then did they adjust? Did they not? Did they take advantage of the situation?
Yeah.
Which you can see from the data that a lot of companies they loved COVID, man, because their profit margins are double what they were before COVID. And
Oh,
that's a
Yeah.
real
I
thing.
mean,
And they're not going to adjust. You will never see them adjust. I guarantee it.
I mean, it's crazy. Like, sure, I'm a big proponent of capitalism. Capitalism's great, but at some point, you got to think like, where does the ethicality come into come into play? You're like stealing
There's
all this
got to
money
be
from
better.
people, even though
There's got to be better
you're
controls in place.
right.
I,
Exactly. Like, you can't. There needs to be some. I know people are like rage against regulation, but at some point, these companies are screwing you over, right? You
Yeah.
like you need something to be like, okay, sure, inflation happened, but now your supply chains are good. Bring back your sure you can keep it a little bit higher, but at least bring it back down to reasonable amounts. You're still making money on it. So,
yeah, I think
I don't
that's
know.
called hyper capitalism. So
Yeah.
so it refers to the extreme capitalism at the expense of traditional values. It's characterized by a focus on profit maximization and market dominance, often leading to social and economic imbalances. So, I mean, yeah, it sounds like if it's too much, then it could have just a broader impact. Capitalism in general. I mean, capitalism is good, but too much of a good thing is bad in this case.
Yep. Yep.
But another
So,
question. Sorry, go ahead.
OEMs in 2019, from 2017 to 2019, they had an average profit margin of 4.8%. Post COVID, they averaged 9%.
OEM. What's an OEM?
Original equipment manufacturers.
Oh,
The automotive suppliers went from 4.7 to 6.5, and dealerships went from 4.9 to 11.5.
they went
Jesus
to oh
Christ.
4.9. Okay, so OEM is refers to a company that produces parts or equipment that may be
Yep.
marketed by another manufacturer. OEMs often create customized products that are integrated into a larger system, allowing the primary company to brand and sell the complete item. Okay, I didn't know what that meant, so I just felt
Yeah,
like
it's basically like Samsung is the OEM for the iPhone screens. So Samsung produces the screens, right? But then Apple creates the entire product and then markets the entire product as their own.
oh, okay. So that's why these companies were having crazy profit margins, is what you were trying to say? Or is that even related?
Yeah, I mean, some of them they've literally doubled their profit margins. I mean, you look at dealerships, they were at 4.8, 4.9%, and now
Mm,
they're 12% versus and automotive suppliers were at 6% and are now at 9%. That's what I'm looking at right here. So,
These
interesting.
um,
dealerships can eat the tariffs. It's fine. They made all this money.
Yeah,
yeah,
AI
seriously though,
invasive.
that's just crazy. I mean, we all knew the dealerships were
Yeah.
gouging, but
Yeah, I
they're
mean now
all,
there's so
I
much
mean,
technology to like cut them out basically. Yeah, but all these online car companies now.
yeah,
Um,
they're starting to do that. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But
But
they're
yeah.
doing it to themselves. You kind of don't
Hmm.
feel bad. I mean, we were shopping cars for a little bit there too, and you go to some places and the car that says online that it's 30 grand is for some reason 60 grand. You go to another one and it's 50 grand, and it's like,
Why?
yeah, so
Yeah,
eat shit.
if you were to invest in one AI application, or in finance, I guess, or just in general, and this could be an LLM too, what would it be and why?
To be honest, probably be like a some type of deep research bot, right? I know Gemini has it, ChatGPT has it, et cetera, et cetera. I think the biggest time-consuming thing is analyzing data, right, to make your decisions. So if you have something that could go out, analyze all this information that's across the internet, in a compelling and structured way, that way, all you have to do is focus on actually reading the information rather than trying to find it yourself. I think that that'll save everybody a lot more time and definitely increase everybody's quality of life.
I've seen some that are used for improving operational efficiency of companies. So they're trained on companies that are known to have, way higher rate of operational efficiency. And so those companies basically get paid a certain amount to let this company train the model based on how they work, and then they go to these other companies that are trying to hire consulting for to improve their operational efficiency, and they basically ask all these questions. They get all this data from the company and plug it in and identify gaps and basically use it as a training tool for these companies that are looking to improve processes. Um, I think that is a really big money area because if you can hire someone to say, okay, my company feels like a mess right now, and we're losing money, we feel like it's not running at full capacity. Um, Please help us, right? There are a lot
Mm,
of
Right.
companies that need that. And so I think if you have the opportunity to come in and basically, okay, we have these 50 companies that are top performers, we already have all these things instead of just like, oh, we're going to hire a consulting firm that also worked with that company and hope that we can attain that. They just literally can plug and play all of their data um, and kind of get that identified really rapidly and at more depth than just someone coming in and sitting and watching and stuff. So,
Right.
no, agreed. Well, thanks for tuning in to Tech for Thought. If you enjoyed today's episode, please follow, like, share the podcast with anyone curious about future of tech, finance, and AI. For all of our latest updates and socials, check out the link tree. It'll probably be listed somewhere in the description. But yeah, good talk today.
Yeah, it was a great talk.
Yeah.
Love talking about
Hmm.
AI.
Yeah, AI, artificial intelligence,
Yep. Yep. Thanks, guys.
artificial.